Hello there. Come in, settle yourself down. However your day has been, whatever weight you're carrying tonight, you can set it down now. Just for a while. Welcome to the Snoozy Explorer. Tonight, we're going somewhere quiet together. Somewhere blue and deep and very, very old. We're going to spend some time with sharks. Not the sharks you might fear, but the sharks that simply are. The ones that have been gliding through dark water for longer than we can properly imagine. I've always found something deeply calming about sharks, you know. Perhaps it's because they ask nothing of us. They don't perform. They don't seek our approval. They simply move through their world with a kind of ancient patience that makes our hurried lives seem, well, rather small, in the nicest possible way. So tonight, let's just drift alongside them for a time. There's nowhere we need to be, nothing we need to remember, just this. The ocean at night is not truly silent, you know. If you were to slip beneath the surface, far from shore, far from the noise of our world above, you would hear things, strange things, beautiful things, the crackling of shrimp like distant rain on a tin roof, the low songs of whales traveling hundreds of miles through the deep, and moving through it all, almost soundless, the sharks. A shark moves through water the way a thought moves through your mind just before sleep. Smooth, inevitable, without effort. There are sharks swimming tonight, right now, as you lie there. In waters warm and cold, in shallows and in depths that have never seen sunlight. They've been doing this for 400 million years. 400 million. It's a number too large to hold, really. But try to feel it, just for a moment. Long before flowers existed, before trees, before the continents settled into the shapes we know. Sharks were there, gliding through ancient seas beneath ancient stars. They've watched the world change around them in their way. Slow and steady, patient beyond our understanding. There's a shark called the Greenland shark that lives in the Arctic waters. Deep and cold. So cold that everything moves slowly there. And the Greenland shark, it hardly moves at all. It drifts, calm and unhurried through that dark, cold world. These sharks live longer than any vertebrate we know of, longer than the giant tortoises, longer than the bowhead whales. Some of them, the scientists believe, may live for 400 years, perhaps even 500. Imagine that for a moment. A shark born before the invention of the light bulb, before the discovery of electricity. A shark that was already old when your great-great-great-grandparents were young. It drifts through the dark Arctic waters at about 1 kilometer per hour, barely moving, just existing, breathing, being. They're nearly blind, these ancient sharks. Their eyes often host small parasites that dangle in front, clouding their vision. But they don't seem to mind. They don't need to see clearly. They've learned other ways. They sense the world through their skin, through the electrical fields generated by living things, through the pressure changes in the water around them. They move through the darkness, and the darkness is enough. I find that rather wonderful, don't you? To be so at peace with your world that sight becomes optional. To trust so completely in your other senses that you simply continue, day after day, year after year, century after century. No rushing, no urgency, just the slow drift through cold water, the patient search for food, the continuation of something very old and very steady. Most sharks, you see, are not the frenzied hunters we imagine. That's a story we've told ourselves, and stories, once begun, are hard to change. But the truth is quieter than fiction. The truth is usually quieter. A basking shark, for instance, the second largest fish in the sea. It can grow to the length of a bus, this creature. Enormous, gentle. It moves through the water with its mouth open wide, filtering tiny plankton from the sea. Just drifting, mouth open, patient. It looks rather like it's yawning, actually. This great, enormous creature, simply gliding along, yawning its way through the ocean. There's something deeply peaceful about that image, I think. Something that makes me want to yawn myself, in sympathy. They're slow swimmers, basking sharks, about 2 miles per hour. A gentle walking pace. You could walk beside one if water were land and keep up quite easily. Sometimes they swim so close to the surface that their dorsal fins break through, cutting a lazy line across the calm sea. Fishermen used to think they were basking in the sun, these sharks, lying there at the surface, warming themselves. That's how they got their name. But they're not basking, not really. They're feeding, always feeding, filtering thousands of gallons of water through their gills every hour, straining out the tiny creatures that sustain them. But it looks like basking. It looks like contentment. And perhaps, in their way, they are content. They don't think about tomorrow, these creatures. They don't worry about yesterday. There is only the water and the plankton and the slow, steady movement forward. Only now, always now. I knew a man once, years ago, who studied sharks, spent his whole life with them, and he told me something I've never forgotten. He said that when you're in the water with a shark, a truly calm shark, not threatened, not hunting, just being, you feel a very particular kind of peace. Because the shark, he said, is so completely present, so entirely in its moment. It doesn't carry the past with it like we do, doesn't project into the future. It exists in a kind of eternal present that we can barely imagine. We think too much, we humans. Our minds are always somewhere else, replaying conversations from yesterday, rehearsing conversations for tomorrow. But a shark is only ever here. And when you're near that kind of presence, he said, some of it transfers to you. Just for a moment, you stop thinking. You just are. I found that rather beautiful. There are sharks that glow in the dark, you know. Bioluminescent sharks. They produce their own light in the deep places where sunlight never reaches. Small sharks, mostly. Delicate things. The lantern shark, for instance. no bigger than your forearm. It lives half a mile down, sometimes deeper, where the pressure is enormous and the water is cold and the darkness is complete. And there, in all that darkness, it glows. Soft blue-green light along its belly. Gentle, like moonlight through water. Like the bioluminescence you sometimes see in tropical seas at night, when the plankton light up at the touch of your hand. Scientists believe they use this light to disguise themselves. When you look up from below in the ocean, you can see the faint light from the surface, you see. The lantern shark's belly glows at just the right brightness to match that distant light. So when a predator looks up, it sees nothing. No silhouette, no shadow, just light. Invisible light. It's a kind of magic, really. A quiet, practical magic. The shark doesn't think about it, of course. It simply glows. It has always glowed. Its ancestors have glowed for millions of years. And in the glowing, it finds safety. There's something deeply calming about these small, glowing sharks, drifting through the endless dark, creating their own light, asking nothing from the world above. They feed on small things, tiny fish, squid, shrimp. They're not aggressive, not territorial, just hungry in a patient way. The same way you might feel hungry late at night, but too comfortable to get up. That kind of gentle hunger that can wait until morning. Everything is slower in the deep sea. Movement is slow. Growth is slow. Even hunger is slow. Time itself seems to run differently down there. Some of these bioluminescent sharks have been found with light organs so complex, so intricate, that scientists are still studying how they work. Tiny mirrors made of crystals, filters that can change the color of the light, shutters that can turn the glow on and off. All of this evolved over millions of years, perfected in the dark. No one watching, no one applauding, just the slow work of time and survival, and the endless, patient sea. The whale shark is the largest fish in the ocean, the largest fish that has ever existed as far as we know. It can grow to the length of 2 buses, 40 feet sometimes, perhaps longer, and it eats plankton. Isn't that something? The largest fish in the sea, and it eats some of the smallest creatures, tiny plants and animals drifting in the current. The whale shark simply opens its enormous mouth and swims forward, gathering them in. They're covered in spots, these sharks. Pale spots on dark skin, or dark spots on pale skin, depending on how you look at it. Each shark's pattern is unique, like fingerprints, like snowflakes. No two the same. Divers who encounter them say they're profoundly gentle, unbothered by human presence. They'll swim alongside you, or beneath you, or above you, completely at ease. Sometimes they'll even approach you, curious in their slow way. They have very small eyes for such large animals, small and dark, and rather kind-looking, though perhaps I'm projecting. But there's something in the way they move, in their patient drifting, that suggests a deep peacefulness. They migrate enormous distances, whale sharks, thousands of miles, following the plankton blooms, following the seasons. They do this alone, mostly. Solitary wanderers of the open ocean, but sometimes, in certain places at certain times, they gather. Dozens of them, hundreds even, all in one place, feeding together in the rich water. And they don't fight, don't compete. There's enough for everyone. They simply share the space, these enormous creatures, moving in a slow dance that looks almost choreographed. Then, when the food is gone, they disperse again, each going their own way, back to the solitude of the open ocean. I like that about them. The comfortable solitude, the peaceful gatherings, the lack of territoriality or aggression, just coexistence. There are sharks that rest on the bottom of the sea, nurse sharks, we call them, though no one's quite sure why. Perhaps because they're so calm, so patient, like a nurse attending to a sleeping patient. They lie on the sandy bottom, sometimes piled on top of one another. 3, 4, 5 sharks in a heap, like puppies, resting, breathing slowly, their small eyes half closed. During the day, they barely move. They've found a comfortable spot, and that's where they'll stay. Under a ledge, perhaps, in a small cave. Somewhere they feel safe and hidden. They don't need to swim constantly like some sharks do. They can pump water over their gills by themselves, so they can rest. Actually rest. At night, they become a bit more active. They hunt in their leisurely way, crawling along the bottom on their pectoral fins, almost walking, looking under rocks, searching through the sand. They eat small things, sleeping fish, octopi, crabs. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet nighttime search for food, then back to rest. I've seen footage of nurse sharks sleeping, truly sleeping, as far as we can tell. Tests show they have reduced awareness when they rest. They enter a state very much like sleep. And doesn't that make sense? Even sharks need rest. Even these ancient, efficient creatures need to stop, to be still, to let go for a while. There's a lesson in that, perhaps. That rest is not weakness. Rest is not failure. Rest is part of the design, built in, necessary. Even a shark knows this. Even a shark, so perfectly adapted to its world, still needs to stop and close its eyes. The ocean floor where these sharks rest is often quite beautiful, in a quiet way. White sand, rippled by ancient currents. Coral formations casting complex shadows. Small fish going about their business, unbothered by the resting giants below. Everything in its place, everything in its time. The nurse shark will wake when it's ready, when hunger calls it, when its body tells it that rest is done. But until then, it simply lies there, breathing, existing, held by the sand and the water and the darkness, rather like you, perhaps, lying there now, held by your bed and the blankets and the night. There are sharks in nearly every ocean, every sea, from the Arctic to the Antarctic, from the surface to the deepest trenches. They filled almost every niche you can imagine, large and small, fast and slow, hunters and filter feeders, but most of them, the vast majority, you'll never see. They live their lives completely apart from us, in places we don't go, doing things we'll never witness, and they're quite content with that arrangement. There's a species called the pocket shark. It's about as long as your hand, 5 inches, maybe 6. They live in the deep ocean, somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000 feet down. We've only found a handful of them, ever, in all our years of studying the sea. They have tiny pockets near their pectoral fins, little pouches that produce a glowing fluid. Scientists aren't sure what they use it for. Perhaps to attract prey, perhaps to communicate, perhaps for something we haven't thought of yet. These tiny sharks, glowing their tiny light in the enormous dark, living their lives in complete obscurity, unknown and unbothered. There could be thousands of them down there, millions. We wouldn't know. The deep ocean is vast beyond comprehension. We've explored more of the moon than we have of our own ocean floor. So these pocket sharks continue, generation after generation, in the cold and the dark and the pressure, glowing their small light, eating their small meals, doing whatever it is that pocket sharks do. No audience, no witnesses, just being. I find that deeply peaceful somehow. That there are creatures living their entire existence unseen by us. That the world continues in all its complexity and beauty, whether we observe it or not. It makes our worries seem rather small, doesn't it? Rather temporary. These sharks don't know we exist, don't care if we exist. They're complete unto themselves, and they've been complete unto themselves for longer than we can properly fathom. When you feel anxious, sometimes it helps to remember that. To remember the pocket shark glowing in the dark, unbothered by the weight of the ocean above it or the darkness around it, just continuing. There's a grace to the way a shark moves that's hard to describe. You have to see it to understand. That effortless glide, the small adjustments of the fins, the way the whole body becomes the movement. Nothing wasted, nothing excess. A shark doesn't swim the way we swim, all splashing and effort. It doesn't even swim the way most fish swim, with that wiggling, hurried motion. A shark moves its tail in long, slow sweeps. The whole body undulates just slightly, like a slow wave passing through. And from this gentle motion comes surprising speed, surprising power. But even when they're moving quickly, there's a quality of calm to it, of control. They're not panicking, not rushing, just efficient. I once read about a study where scientists tracked the swimming patterns of blue sharks in the open ocean. They expected to find the sharks swimming constantly, searching for food, covering enormous distances. And the sharks were covering enormous distances, hundreds of miles, thousands. But they weren't rushing. They were traveling at a steady 2 miles per hour, 3 at most, just a walking pace, hour after hour, day after day. Imagine that, swimming across the ocean at walking speed, never hurrying, never stopping. The researchers calculated that at this pace, swimming this way, the sharks used almost no energy at all. Their bodies are so perfectly designed, their motion so efficient, that crossing an ocean cost them almost nothing. They could do it forever, practically, and perhaps some of them do. Perhaps there are blue sharks out there that have been swimming steadily for years, decades, crossing and recrossing the ocean basins in great, lazy loops, never tired, never bored, just traveling. Blue sharks are beautiful, you know, truly beautiful. Deep blue on top, fatting to white on the belly. Long pectoral fins like wings. Large eyes, adapted for the dim light of the open ocean. They're built for endless wandering. No territory to defend. No home to return to. Just the open water and the horizon and whatever comes. They eat squid mostly, and small fish. They'll follow fishing boats sometimes, hopping for scraps. Not aggressively, just hopefully, patiently. Sometimes they gather in groups, hundreds of them circling slowly. But they're not hunting, not threatening each other, just existing together for a time. Then they disperse, each going their own way, back to the solitude of the open ocean. I like animals that are comfortable with solitude, that don't need constant company, constant stimulation, that can just be. We've lost that, I think. We humans, the ability to be alone with ourselves, to be quiet inside our own minds. But a shark, swimming through the dark water, thousands of miles from shore, a shark knows how to be alone. And in that aloneness, there's a kind of peace we might do well to remember. There are sharks that live in rivers, you know, freshwater sharks, or sharks that can tolerate freshwater at least. The bull shark is the most famous of these. It can travel far up rivers, into water that's barely salty at all. They've been found hundreds of miles inland, in rivers, in lakes, places you wouldn't expect a shark to be. But there they are, calm and capable, adapted. They're stocky sharks, bull sharks, broad and powerful, built for murky water where visibility is poor. They don't rely on their eyes as much as other sharks. They use their other senses, the electrical sense, the sense of pressure and movement. In the murky river water, where you can barely see your hand in front of your face, a bull shark moves with confidence. It knows where everything is, can sense the fish hiding in the weeds, the turtle on the bottom, the movement of the current around a sunken log, all without seeing. We put so much emphasis on seeing, we humans, on visual proof, on watching and observing. But there are other ways of knowing, other ways of moving through the world. The bull shark knows this. In some rivers, they've become part of the ecosystem, part of the rhythm of that place. Local people know about them. Leave them alone. and the sharks leave the people alone. Coexistence again. That's largely how it is with sharks, you see. Despite our fears, despite the stories, they're not interested in us. We're not on their menu. We're too bony, too strange. Most shark bites are cases of mistaken identity. The shark thought you were a seal, perhaps, or just wanted to investigate. Sharks investigate things with their mouths, the way we might reach out and touch something unfamiliar. They bite, they realize you're not food, they leave. It's unfortunate when it happens, of course. Frightening, sometimes tragic, but it's not malice. It's not aggression. It's just a shark being a shark, trying to understand its world the only way it knows how. Understanding this doesn't make it less frightening, perhaps, but it does make it less personal. The shark isn't angry with you, isn't hunting you. It's just made a mistake. And really, when you look at the numbers, the statistics, sharks are remarkably gentle with us. Millions of people enter the ocean every year. Millions. And the number of serious shark encounters is tiny, vanishingly small. You're more likely to be struck by lightning, more likely to be injured by your own furniture. The sharks are out there, yes, swimming in the waters where we swim, but they're avoiding us just as much as we're avoiding them. Perhaps more. There's a kind of shark called the horn shark that lives along rocky coasts. It's a small shark, humble. It has a blunt head and small, grinding teeth made for crushing shells and sea urchins. At night, it hunts, slowly, methodically, turning over rocks with its nose, crunching through the shells of crabs and snails. But during the day, it rests in the same place, the same crevice in the rocks, day after day, year after year. Scientists have tracked individual horn sharks returning to the exact same resting spot for over 10 years. The same spot. Think about that for a moment. Having a place that's yours. A place you return to. A place that fits you exactly. The horn shark slides into its crevice in the rocks, and the rocks hold it. Safe, hidden, the perfect fit. And there it stays until evening, breathing slowly, eyes half closed, content. There's a wonderful simplicity to its life. Hunt at night, rest during the day. Eat what you can find. Avoid what might eat you. Return to your spot in the rocks. No complexity. No anxiety about the future. No regret about the past. Just the rhythm. The simple, ancient rhythm. I wonder sometimes if we couldn't learn something from that. From having our spot in the rocks. Our place to return to. Where we fit exactly, and being content with that, not always searching for more, for different, for better, just returning, fitting, resting. The ocean in which these sharks live is constantly changing. Tides rise and fall. Storms pass through. The seasons change. The water warms and cools. But the horn shark's spot in the rocks remains, constant, reliable, and perhaps that's enough. Perhaps that's everything. there are sharks that hunt in the deep scattering layer. That's what scientists call it, the deep scattering layer. It's a layer of small creatures, fish and squid and jellyfish and shrimp, that lives deep in the ocean during the day, hiding from predators that hunt by sight. But at night, they rise. Millions of them, billions, rising toward the surface to feed on the plankton there. It's the largest migration on Earth. This movement happens every single night in every ocean. More animals involved than any migration on land or air, and the sharks follow them up. Deep water sharks, rising with the scattering layer, following the food, hunting in the darkness. Then, as dawn approaches, everything descends again. The small creatures dropping back into the safety of the deep. The sharks following them down. Every night, every morning. The rhythm of it, the reliability. These sharks have been following this pattern for how long? Since there have been sharks. Since there have been small creatures rising and falling with the light. Millions of years, tens of millions. The same dance, the same rhythm. Night after night after night. There's something deeply restful about that kind of constancy, that kind of reliability, knowing that some things continue, some patterns hold, no matter what happens in our small, brief lives. The sharks are out there, rising and falling with the scattering layer, following the food, following the rhythm that's older than mountains, still here, still continuing. I want to tell you about the cookie cutter shark, because it's such a strange little creature, and strangeness can be calming in its own way. When you realize how odd and varied life is, how many different solutions evolution has found to the problem of existence, it puts things in perspective. The cookie cutter shark is small, about as long as your arm. It lives in the deep ocean, but it comes to the surface at night, and it takes bites out of whales. Not aggressive bites, not attacks. It's far too small to attack a whale, but it has special lips that work like a suction cup, and teeth arranged in a circular pattern, like a cookie cutter. It attaches itself to a larger animal, a whale or a dolphin, or even a large shark, and twists its body, cutting out a perfect circular plug of flesh. Then it drops off and swims away. The wound heals. The whale is fine. The cookie cutter shark has its meal. It's bizarre, yes, but also rather clever, rather gentle in its way. It's not trying to kill, not trying to fight, just taking what it needs. A small circular bite, a cookie cutter circle. The whales don't seem to mind much, or if they do, they've accepted it. This is just part of life in the ocean. Sometimes a cookie cutter shark takes a bite. You heal and you continue. These little sharks glow in the dark too. Their bellies produce a blue-green light, but there's a dark collar around their neck that doesn't glow. Scientists think this dark collar might look like a small fish to predators looking up from below. So the predator comes to investigate, and the cookie cutter shark gets a meal. Clever, strange, effective. They migrate up and down in the water column every day, down to the depths during daylight, up to the surface at night, traveling thousands of feet vertically every day. All of this in a shark the size of your arm. Life finds a way, doesn't it? Even in the strangest niches, even in the most unlikely places, the cookie cutter shark has found its place, has found its method, and it continues. There are sharks that look like saws. Saw sharks, they're called, not to be confused with sawfish, which are rays. Saw sharks are sharks with long, flat snouts studded with teeth on either side. Like a saw blade, they use this saw to dig through the sand, searching for buried prey. Or they swing it through schools of fish, stunning them. Then they eat at their leisure. They have long, thin barbels on their snout, like whiskers. These help them sense prey buried in the sand. They're not aggressive sharks, not dangerous to us, just unusual, specialized. They rest on the bottom during the day, mostly, camouflaged against the sand, their saw lying flat, eyes watching. At night they hunt, always the rhythm, rest and hunt, rest and hunt, day and night, night and day. Some sharks are more active at dawn and dusk, the in-between times, when the light is changing, when the diurnal creatures are settling down and the nocturnal creatures are waking up. The transition times. There's a peaceful quality to dawn and dusk, isn't there? A softness. The world is quieter then, gentler, and the sharks know this. They move through the changing light, taking advantage of the confusion, yes, but also just being part of that transition, that in between, neither day nor night, both and neither. Lemon sharks gather in groups sometimes. Young lemon sharks learning to hunt. They'll stay together for years, these groups, not family necessarily, just companions. They seem to learn from each other, to cooperate in a limited way. They're more successful hunters when they're together than when they're alone. But it's not a permanent bond. Eventually, they go their separate ways, off into the ocean, alone again. But for those years when they're together, there's something almost social about it, almost friendly. They'll rest together in the mangroves, all in a row, or piled up like the nurse sharks, just being together, not doing anything, just existing in proximity. There's a comfort in that, isn't there? Being near others without the need for interaction, for conversation, just presence. Some sharks return to the same area to give birth, year after year. The same lagoon, the same stretch of coast. Scientists aren't sure how they navigate, how they find their way back across thousands of miles of featureless ocean. But they do. They remember. Or perhaps remember isn't the right word. Perhaps they just know. The way you know how to find your way home, even in the dark, even tired. You just know. The pregnant sharks arrive. They give birth in the shallow, safe water. The pups are born fully formed, ready to swim, ready to hunt. The mother provides no care, She's already done her part. The pups are on their own now, and they manage. They hide in the seagrass. They learn to hunt small fish. They avoid predators. Most of them will die. That's just the reality. But some will survive. Some will grow. Some will return years later to give birth in the same place. The cycle continuing. It's harsh, perhaps, but it's not cruel. It's just the way. And there's a cleanness to it, a clarity, no false promises, no pretense, just survival, just continuation. The ocean is an honest place. There are sharks that have never been seen alive by human eyes. Species we only know from dead specimens that washed ashore or were caught accidentally in fishing nets. We have their bodies. We can describe them, measure them, classify them, but we don't know how they live, what they eat, where they go, how deep they swim, whether they migrate. They're mysteries, complete mysteries, and they'll probably remain mysteries. The ocean is too vast, too deep. We have neither the time nor the resources to find them all, to know them all. So they continue, unknown and unbothered, living their lives in the dark and the deep. And honestly, isn't that all right? Isn't there something right about that? That there are still mysteries, still unknowns, still creatures living their entire existence beyond our knowledge or control. The world is larger than us, older than us, will continue after us, and the sharks will still be there, swimming, gliding, existing, in the deep places, in the dark places, calm and ancient and free. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I think about sharks. I don't know why exactly, but I imagine them out there in the dark ocean, moving slowly, purposefully, never hurried, and it helps somehow. Perhaps it's because they're so utterly unconcerned with the things that concern me, with deadlines and obligations and worries. They don't carry tomorrow on their backs. They don't drag yesterday behind them. They're just now, always now, only now. There's a freedom in that, a lightness, even though a shark is always doing something, always moving or resting or hunting. It's never burdened by it. It's not thinking about the fish it will eat tomorrow, not regretting the fish it missed yesterday. It's simply doing what it's doing, being what it is. A shark, nothing more, nothing less. We could learn from that, perhaps, to be simply what we are, to do simply what we're doing, without the constant commentary, the constant evaluation, just being. The thresher shark has a tail as long as its body, an enormous curved tail like a scythe. It uses this tail to hunt. It swims into a school of fish and whips its tail around, stunning them. Then it feeds on the dazed fish at its leisure. But when it's not hunting, when it's just swimming, that great tail moves in long, slow sweeps, like a pendulum, like a metronome, back and forth, rhythmic, hypnotic. You could watch a thresher shark swim for hours, I think, just watching that tail, that slow, steady movement. not thinking about anything, just watching. Sometimes that's all we need. Something to rest our attention on. Something steady and rhythmic and calm. The breath going in and out. The tail moving back and forth. The same thing, really. The hammerhead shark has always seemed like such an unlikely creature. That strange, flat head. Eyes on the ends of the hammer. It looks like a mistake, like something that shouldn't work, but it works beautifully. That wide head acts like a metal detector, sweeping back and forth over the sand. The shark can sense the electrical signals from buried prey more easily, with all those sensors spread out across the hammer, and the eyes, set so far apart, give it better vision, better depth perception. It can see above and below at the same time. What looks strange to us is perfect for the shark, perfectly adapted, perfectly designed, and they move through the water so smoothly, these hammerheads. Despite the odd shape, despite what we might expect, graceful, efficient, calm. Sometimes the strangest solutions are the best ones. Sometimes what seems wrong is exactly right. Hammerheads gather in schools sometimes, hundreds of them, swimming together in clear blue water. All those hammers moving in unison. Scientists aren't entirely sure why they gather like this. Not for hunting, not for breeding necessarily, perhaps just for the company, for the safety of numbers, or perhaps for no reason at all. Perhaps just because they can. Does everything need a reason? Can't some things just be? The sharks swim together, moving as one. Then, at some signal we don't perceive, they separate, each going their own way. The gathering was temporary, and that's all right. Some things are temporary. Some connections are brief, and they're no less real for being temporary, no less meaningful. The encounter happened. The sharks swam together. Then they swam apart, and life continued. Simple as that. There are sharks, deep-sea sharks, that have never felt sunlight, born in darkness, living in darkness, dying in darkness. Generations of them, thousands of generations, millions, all in the dark, and they're fine. They don't miss the sun. They don't long for the light. This is their world, the only world they've ever known, the only world their ancestors ever knew. And in that world, they're perfectly adapted, perfectly content. They have their own light, some of them, their bioluminescence, their glow. They have their electrical sense, their lateral line, their sense of smell and taste and pressure. They have everything they need. The darkness isn't an absence to them. It's not a lack. It's just the way things are. And in accepting that, in being adapted to that, there's a kind of peace, not fighting against reality, not wishing things were different, just being what you are, where you are, a shark in the dark, complete, sufficient. The ocean is breathing, you know, not literally, but in a way. The water moves in and out with the tides, up and down with the waves. The oxygen levels rise and fall. The temperature shifts. It's all alive, all moving, all breathing. And the sharks move with it, part of it. They don't fight the current, don't resist the tide. They use it, work with it, ride it when it helps, rest behind a rock when it doesn't. Fluid, adaptable, never rigid, never stuck. When the water is warm, they move deeper. When it's cold, they move to different latitudes. When prey is scarce in one place, they go to another, always adjusting, always adapting, but never rushed, never panicked, just responding appropriately, calmly, the way you might pull a blanket up when you're cold, or shift position when you're uncomfortable. Natural, automatic, easy. Some sharks will eat things that aren't food, you know. Strange things, license plates, bottles, bits of metal, not because they're hungry for these things, but because they're curious, investigating. Most of the time, they realize quickly that it's not food and they spit it out. But sometimes it gets swallowed by accident, and then it just sits there in the shark's stomach. The shark seems unbothered. It continues its life, swimming, hunting, existing, carrying this strange object inside it. I find that oddly touching. The shark going about its day with a license plate in its stomach, still calm, still capable, still continuing. We all carry strange things inside us, don't we? Things that aren't meant to be there. Old hurts, odd memories, bits of our past that we can't seem to digest or dislodge. And yet we continue, like the shark, still swimming, still hunting, still existing, despite the strange weight we carry. Perhaps that's all we can do. Continue despite it, continue with it, not letting it stop us, not letting it define us. Just one more thing we happen to be carrying. The goblin shark is perhaps the strangest looking of all sharks. It has a long, flat snout, small eyes, and jaws that can shoot forward out of its mouth when it feeds. It lives very deep. We rarely see them. When we do, they're usually dead, brought up from the depths by fishing nets. They're soft, flabby, almost pink or gray. Their skin is loose. They look rather unfortunate, if I'm being honest. But in the deep ocean where they live, they're perfect. That soft body, those extending jaws, that long, sensitive snout, all of it makes sense down there. Down in the dark, down in the cold and the pressure. We see them out of context, and they seem wrong, monstrous even. But in their context, in their world, they're just right, perfectly adapted, perfectly sufficient. It's a good reminder, I think, that we don't always see things in their proper context. We judge them by our standards, our environment, but every creature is perfect for its place. Every life makes sense in its setting, even the goblin shark, especially the goblin shark, in the deep, dark ocean where it belongs. It's beautiful. As darkness deepens outside your window, there are sharks settling in for the night, finding their resting places, their crevices in the rocks, They're patches of sand. There are others just waking, rising from the bottom, preparing to hunt. Some are beginning long migrations, swimming steadily away from the coast, toward the open ocean, toward whatever calls them. Others are arriving, completing journeys that began weeks ago, thousands of miles away. All of this happening right now as you lie there. The ocean doesn't stop for night, doesn't pause for darkness. It continues, always continues, and the sharks continue with it, gliding through black water, sensing the world through methods we can barely understand, living their lives with a completeness and presence we can only aspire to. They don't worry about tomorrow. They can't. They don't regret yesterday. It's not in their nature. They're just here now, present, in the water, in the dark, in their lives. And there's something profoundly peaceful about that, to be so completely where you are, so entirely what you are. No division between the shark and the swimming, between the creature and the ocean, just existence, unified whole. As you drift toward sleep, perhaps you can imagine it, being a shark in dark water. No thoughts, no worries, no planning or regretting, just the water flowing past, the subtle movements of your fins, the slow, steady beat of your tail, moving forward, always forward, not because you're going somewhere, not because you have to, just because forward is what you do. You're a shark, and sharks swim. Simple as that. The water holds you, supports you. You're weightless in it, effortless. You could swim forever like this. Perhaps you will. Perhaps you already have. For hundreds of millions of years, creatures like you have been swimming these oceans. And for hundreds of millions of years more, creatures like you will continue, long after we're gone, long after everything we've built has crumbled and dissolved and been forgotten. The sharks will still be there, swimming in the dark water, calm, ancient, free. And in that continuation, in that certainty, there's a deep comfort. Some things persist, some things remain. Despite everything, because of everything, the ocean continues. The sharks continue. Life continues. And for tonight, that's enough. More than enough. It's everything. Rest now. The sharks are swimming. The ocean is breathing. All is well. All is well.